Hello and welcome to Solutions Journalism Network's basic training video on how to produce strong solution stories for TV news. We call this kind of reporting hope with teeth because solutions journalism uses rigorous investigative techniques to tell not just the story of a problem, but also what's working to fix it. We know that relentlessly negative coverage turns people off. Viewers are tired of bad news that does not include any mention of what others are doing to resolve problems. Reporting only on problems is not enough anymore to satisfy viewers, especially those under 35. Sure, you can tell heartwarming stories about people helping each other, but you can also rigorously investigate what's actually working on a broader scale. For whom? For how much? For how long? That's the kind of coverage that audiences are seeking now. A large nationwide study from the media research firm Smith Geiger confirms viewers in all demographics across partisan lines want to see more solutions reporting. Regular solutions coverage makes a station stand out from others and builds brand loyalty. And they also found that viewers are even more interested in seeing an out-of-town story about a solution than a local story about a problem. Viewers need more. They want the whole story. Not just the problem, the starting point of your reporting, the basic building block of any narrative. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Audiences also seek other kinds of information, background explainers, personal stories of impact, how to help resources. But people are also looking for credible evidence on things that are actually working, on the ground, in real time. That's solutions journalism. In this video, we'll look at what solutions journalism is, and just as importantly, what it isn't. We'll look at TV stories that include all 4 criteria of solutions journalism, and we'll share some strategies for applying solutions concepts throughout your reporting process. So what is solutions journalism? What does it mean exactly? Solutions journalism is just good journalism. Rigorous, evidence-based reporting on responses to systemic problems. Here are what we call the 4 pillars of solutions journalism. First, it looks at a response to a designated problem. It provides insights and details on how the response works. It includes quantitative and qualitative evidence of the effectiveness of the problem, not just its good intentions and hopes. And finally, it discusses any limitations in the approach. It avoids PR and hype, and it does not come across as a fluffy, feel-good feature. It's an approach that makes a difference for viewers and journalists. You don't just have to take our word for it. Here's what the team at the NBC affiliate KXAN in Austin, Texas has to say about the impact solutions journalism made in their newsroom.
I think often we hear from viewers that you're only telling us about the bad news and you're only investigating the problems. And sometimes we don't think about how do we get past that problem? What's it going to take to fix whatever is wrong with our community?
News can be depressing these days, and folks are really turned off by a lot of that. And so it brings a breath of fresh air and a positivity to the news to say this isn't just a problem, but we're going to also talk about some potential solutions, which really changes the entire feeling when you're both reporting on and watching the news.
The biggest impact that I noticed after we really started focusing on solutions journalism was that our stories were looking different. Whereas before, it may have been a feature, well now, because of solutions journalism, that feature story has more to it. And it just made us examine those stories and take it beyond a fluff piece.
And we had a management team that really got behind this. Our news director, our station manager, our marketing director, our sales team, they wanted to learn more about this. They saw the value of this, not just for the station, but for the community. It seems like the audience wanted this type of content. They wanted to know that there was a possibility that this problem could be fixed. And I think that it garnered an interest that we hadn't seen before.
I mean, we've had an amazing reaction from our viewers. We're still getting story ideas in. I'm getting story ideas in my inbox every single day.
To be able to get emails to this day about story ideas, that's amazing. We are more than 6 months in now, and we are still getting content for this idea of solutions journalism that is really become a station-wide effort now.
Doing solutions journalism doesn't mean that you stop covering problems or that reporting on problems is a bad thing. Instead, it's a way to look at those problems through a different lens. Let's look now at 3 examples of TV solution stories. As you watch each one, look for the specific elements of the 4 criteria of solutions journalism, not just the response to the problem with details and insights about it, but also evidence of its success and acknowledgement of its limitations.
In the path forward against the coronavirus, West Virginia is leading the nation in the number of people receiving the life-saving vaccination. The CDC breaks down the numbers to show that with a population of just more than 1.7 million, 2.5% of the state population is already fully vaccinated with both doses. Compare that with nearby Ohio and Kentucky at just 0.8%. Jennifer McAndrews has more on how West Virginia became a leader in the COVID vaccine rollout.
All I can say is pour it on, West Virginia. Keep doing it.
West Virginia Governor Jim Justice showing pride in the work being done to take the state to the top of the nation in the COVID vaccine rollout success. With a population of a little over 1.7 million, what does success mean in terms of how many shots are given to residents? First, it breaks down to using more doses per vial of vaccine.
We're getting more doses out of the vials than what they really anticipated, but 106.4% of what we've received are in somebody's arm in West Virginia.
Efficient usage of the medicine isn't the only key to success. To date, West Virginia has administered 175,317 first doses of the vaccine, and almost 52,000 people have been fully vaccinated by receiving their second dose. The method the state uses to get those shots in arms has been instrumental in its success. The state opted out of the federal programs with national pharmacies, instead choosing to use its own network of pharmacies and health partners to work with long-term care facilities. It helps to reach the many communities dotting out among the rolling terrain, communities that don't have access to the nationally run chain pharmacies. And West Virginia began the fight against COVID by using the National Guard. They're experts in logistics, not bureaucracy. And at the county level, vaccination clinics require appointments to use the week's allotted amount of vaccine.
There was a lot of best practices data shared across the 55 counties. We've had some great work from the pharmacy board to help with training. It is not every single vial that you get the extra dose. But we are getting enough. As the governor pointed out, this is making a significant impact, and we now plan for that and take the analytics into effect to make sure we're getting maximum number of doses to our citizens.
West Virginia has long been known for an older, less healthy population than the rest of the country. And that was the focus. Those factors were a driving force behind the early executive decision to have widespread COVID testing beginning last year and a vaccine rollout plan now.
We got our elderly tested first. We've gotten them vaccinated first, and we're trying to protect those 65 and over at this point.
But to do that, the state needs more of the vaccine. The governor is pressing for more, saying their efficient rollout should put the state at the top of the list for more doses to keep the state ahead of the curve.
We believe that without changing any of the current infrastructure that we have created with our partners, that we could distribute 125,000 doses of vaccine per week, which would greatly accelerate our ability to reach our prioritized groups.
The National Guard says it will establish distribution capabilities in all 55 counties that will expand their ability to get the doses in arms. Good news, since the state's been notified, their normal 23,600 doses will come with an extra 3,700 more next week. In Charleston, I'm Jennifer McAndrews.
West Virginia's numbers are impressive, but the vaccine rollout hasn't gone off entirely without glitches. Phone lines have been jammed at times for vaccination clinics, leading to frustration. And Dr. Marsh says even at the current pace of vaccinations, it could be spring before the state's senior population is fully vaccinated.
Did you identify all 4 solutions criteria? This story by WCHS in Charleston, West Virginia, shows a response to the problem of vaccine distribution in that state, describes details and insights about how it rolled out successfully, shows evidence of success in that more than 100% of the doses were administered due to the extra amount of vaccine in each vial, and includes limitations of the approach, namely that it's still frustrating to make appointments.
650,000 inmates are released from prison every year, and a recent study concluded 83% of them were rearrested within the first 9 years of freedom. All this month, our Christine Byers is taking a closer look at the Concordance Academy of Leadership and how this local nonprofit is trying to reverse that trend. Christine shows us how one graduate benefited from the program.
It was like the best thing that ever happened to me.
Derek Mitchell was nearing the end of a 10-year sentence when a rare opportunity came his way.
And then I was approached with this opportunity to apply for Concordance Academy.
Concordance Academy is a nonprofit run by a retired Wells Fargo Advisors CEO that helps prevent people from going back to prison. After 6 years in operation, Concordance has reduced the chances of inmates like Mitchell from returning to prison by 44%.
What do you think would have happened without this program?
I probably would have did something stupid. You just feel like you don't have a chance, a shot in this world. After you become a felon.
In 2010, Mitchell broke into his own apartment after his girlfriend changed the locks. They fought, and he was convicted of burglary, assault, armed criminal action, and resisting arrest.
A 5-minute thought can cost you 10 years of your life.
His mother and grandmother had recently died, leaving him feel like he didn't have family support.
It was very bleak. I didn't know where I was going, what I was going to do.
So for the last 6 months of Mitchell's sentence, he worked with a Concordance staff member on a plan for his first 12 months out of prison. The nonprofit partners with a local law firm to address any outstanding warrants or legal issues participants may have, as well as federal health providers to address any health concerns that they may have as well.
I got counseling here. I have legal representation here. The day I got out of prison, I reported to Concordance.
But it's a process that takes weeks of mental health counseling before a job hunt can even begin. And that can be hard for people returning to their families after being in prison with no income. Mitchell graduated from the 18-month Concordance program in October.
A lot of people I know never graduated high school. We had a graduation. You know what I mean? They give out a graduation to let you know that you have accomplished some things.
Mitchell is now working a couple of jobs at Schnucks and GM. He's now married with a new baby. He hopes to open up his own business soon and even reconnected with his 10-year-old daughter.
Like I said, they probably saved my life.
Christine Byers, 5 on your side.
Concordance Academy of Leadership is in the midst of a $50 million fundraising campaign to open locations in at least 11 more cities across the country. To learn more about what researchers have to say about this program, you can read Christine's full report on ksdk.com.
What are the 4 solutions elements in this story by KSDK in St. Louis? It's a response to the problem of recidivism. It provides insights and details on how the program works. It gives evidence of its success with a 44% drop in the number of cases. And it points out a limitation in the program, that people still have to wait quite a while for employment.
Here in Chicago, the Little Village neighborhood now has the second highest number of deaths in the city. It's one of 3 Latino communities added to the city's rapid response team, working in both Hispanic and Black communities. The team started 4 months ago. CBS 2 investigator Dorothy Tucker looks at their successes and challenges.
What you like, meat and canned goods? I come here just about every week.
Here, where volunteers with the Greater Auburn Gresham Development Corporation distribute food.
I got some hand sanitizer. I think they have some face masks in there.
And safety equipment to neighborhood residents.
I'm so humble and so grateful for these people here. I don't know what to do. With this pandemic, this is the most grateful thing. It's like it's God sent.
This gift from God,
we appreciate it so much. Thank you.
As Ronald Macon calls it, began in early April.
Good honey nut cereal, some dried blueberries.
one of several food giveaways where community organizations distributed more than 6,000 boxes of groceries to targeted neighborhoods.
Thank you.
It's part of efforts by Chicago's new Racial Equity Rapid Response Team.
Good morning, good morning.
Carlos Nelson is a member of the team.
The mission was to rapidly respond to the despair that COVID laid upon Black and brown communities.
The despair began in this community.
Auburn Gresham right here was the very first death related to COVID in the state of Illinois, the Friesen family, and 2 weeks later, a second sibling of that family died.
CBS 2 was the first to map the hotspots for coronavirus deaths in April. We found Auburn Gresham was one of the 5 communities with the most deaths, and many of the victims were Black. At the time, Auburn Gresham had 6 deaths, Austin had 5, and South Shore was number 1 with 7.
We can and we will organize a rapid, coordinated, community-based, and community-driven response.
After our report, Mayor Lightfoot targeted these 3 communities we highlighted.
Really about saving lives in our community.
It's an uphill battle. Today, the numbers are even higher. Take a look at our latest map. Deaths in Auburn Gresham have jumped to 36. South Shore has 114, and Austin 121. For the hardest hit spots, the numbers are more than 20 times what they were in April. And something else has changed.
Over the last couple of months, we have seen the numbers in the Latino community really go through the roof.
Since March, more than a quarter of those who have died are Latinx. So the task force expanded to include Pilsen with 32 deaths, Belmont-Creighton with 73, and Little Village has 119 deaths, the second most in the city.
One of the things that the task force has done is really let the data lead the work that's happening within the task force.
Safety is the number 1 priority. 6 new testing sites have opened in the targeted communities, and more than 1 million masks have been distributed.
And so we went from a community that had very little access to masks and gloves and sanitizer, for example, to a community that has been working really hard to make sure that everyone has access to those things.
Task force leaders have also offered financial aid. In Auburn Gresham, 250 families received $380,000 to help pay rent, mortgage, and utility bills.
Many of the folks that come through are not destitute, not homeless. These are middle-income families that have been challenged by COVID-19, income loss and wage loss, and little access to food.
In Austin, they passed out 500 laptops and worked with Comcast to provide families with internet at a reduced cost.
A lot of the relief and the resources that people needed in order to acquire those things, it was online.
Although we are having an impact in this work and we are moving in the right direction, it's going to take some time for us to really address particularly the underlying issues that have gotten us to this point.
Those underlying issues, says Gutierrez, are a result of systemic racism in Latino and Black communities, inequality in education, employment, health, and housing. And Chicago is not alone in its desperate efforts to right the wrongs. In New York, community leaders there launched their task force in April, which included longer-term strategies. Several have already gotten off the ground, like new programs to help minority business owners navigate the government contract process, and a mediation project to help landlords and tenants settle rent disputes outside of court. Chicago's task force is also looking at projects to address years of racial disparities.
It's been vacant for more than 20 years.
Last month, the mayor announced $11 million in funding for 2 developments in the city's south and west side. Rehabbing this vacant building on 79th and Halsted is one of them.
We are going to gut it, and we are going to anchor it with a full-service health and wellness center.
But as COVID-19 deaths in communities like Auburn Gresham continue to grow, Carlos says it'll take time to undo decades of neglect.
We've got a long way to go, I must say.
Efforts like these, thank you, are a start. Now, city officials do acknowledge that a lot of work has been done, but they also point to some successes, or rather a lot of work has to be done, but they still point to some successes. The increase in the number of people being tested, more folks wearing masks, and a better system for getting coronavirus information out to the public. Erica?
Yeah, so this has been going on for several months. In the early stages, they're saying it's a start, but how long is this task force expected to operate?
You know, they're really not giving a timetable, but one community leader said to me they thought that they would be giving out food to the end of July. Now it looks like that they will be giving more food out through the end of August or maybe even longer. So no timetable yet.
All right, well, that's encouraging that it's continuing so far.
Did you catch all 4 solution story elements in this piece by WBBM in Chicago? First, it covers the lack of response to COVID-19 programs in minority communities. It gives details and insights on how the rapid response team works. It shows evidence of success with new testing sites, more masks, more funding, etc. And it also talks about the ongoing resistance organizers face due to decades of systemic neglect towards these communities. To recap, your stories need the following elements to qualify as solutions journalism, even if it's just a brief one-line mention in a quick day turn. Specifically, it must make problem solving the center of your story around which the other elements revolve, dive deep into the insights and how-to details of the response, look at wide-scale systemic responses to a problem, not individual do-gooders, provide some kind of evidence of the impact and effectiveness of the response, make sure to point out limitations, challenges, or concerns about the approach. Let's look more closely at exactly how to do solutions journalism for TV. First of all, you may be wondering, can solutions journalism actually fit into a 2-minute piece? Yes, absolutely. It may be lighter on depth, but if you include at least a sentence or 2 on each of the 4 criteria of solutions journalism, it's certainly achievable. Here's a very basic formula for a 2-minute TV story that includes all 4 criteria of solutions journalism. First, you can start with a person's story, 2 or 3 sentences outlining their struggles, plus a short soundbite. Then describe the general problem briefly in another 2 or 3 sentences, another short soundbite from an expert that clarifies the problem. Now describe the solution in 2 to 3 sentences with a short soundbite from someone who's benefited from it. Follow this with some evidence of success in a couple short sentences, maybe a graphic. And you can wrap up with at least 1 line about a drawback, obstacle, or ongoing challenge, some kind of limitation of the solution. And that's it, you've done it. A 2-minute story that includes all 4 elements of solutions journalism, even if it's just a short mention. Here's a 1-minute, 15-second piece that hits all the criteria of solutions journalism. Can you identify all the necessary solution story elements here?
More than 80% of the students in Castleberry ISD come from families struggling financially. The district worked to give most of the students computers.
We have one-to-one computers for basically 4th grade on, but they're might as well be boat anchors, because what can you do with it if you cannot connect to the internet?
So the district invested $600,000 in these towers to send the school's own Wi-Fi signal out.
A cell phone network, basically like AT&T or T-Mobile would have, but instead of using an existing carrier, we have our own.
Who knew the project would wrap up right when coronavirus struck?
This is a huge game changer for us. We're not out scrambling, trying to buy hotspots, things of that nature.
Other districts have reached out trying to copy what Castleberry is doing. It was easier here because the district is just 7 square miles, but it could help the bigger districts fill the gaps and help students like they have in Castleberry.
And I've had several of them actually tell me how cool this is. They're thankful for it. They no longer have to use their cell phone to do their homework.
What makes this short report from KXAS in Fort Worth a solution story? Well, first, it responds to the problem of internet access to online schools. It describes some details and insights about the towers they built. It talks about the evidence of success that's made other school districts want to copy this model. And it points out limitations in the approach, namely the cost and the geography, all in 75 seconds. So how do you find solution stories? How to cover a huge problem that seems intractable without making your solution story look simplistic or seem like hype? Carve out a small slice of the problem. Remember, you're not looking for a magic bullet because there probably isn't one. For example, the pandemic is a huge story with dozens of angles to explore. So define your particular area of interest within it, such as education, housing, employment, vulnerable populations, transportation, or something else altogether. Find your manageable slice of the pandemic, then look at solutions that address this one specific aspect of it. Here's a good interview question that can lead you directly to solution story ideas. Make sure to regularly ask your sources, who's doing it better? They may have good thoughts to offer, but might not provide this information unless you ask. And start asking your colleagues if there's a solutions angle to the stories pitched in editorial sessions. Also, ask yourself, is there a general lack of awareness about the story you want to cover? If so, perhaps it's better to do a story that exposes more of the problem first. But when the problem is clearly understood and people still do not know enough about effective responses, a solution story can provide the fresh angles and insights that people are seeking. How much and what kind of evidence is enough to qualify for a solution story? Remember, most early stage fixes don't have much evidence. So if you cover something like this, be sure to also tell your audience what you don't know, and that you'll circle back to it when more is known, and then mark your calendar as a reminder. Please use our Solution Story Tracker to help you find examples of what's working. It's one of our most popular website features, with a database of over 11,000 stories that have been vetted for the 4 criteria of solutions journalism. Use the tracker to get a general overview of what's working for your topic question and to find relevant sources you may want to contact. So how and where can solution stories fit into your newscast? Show producers, your role is very important in conveying your station's commitment to solutions coverage beyond the impact that one solution story may have. All the solutions elements don't have to appear in any one package. For example, have a reporter show and tell what works, or break out evidence into a graphic, or cover limitations in a Q&A with the anchor, or tease to solutions coming up on air or online. For a more in-depth approach, create a super block around one aspect of a problem that you want to highlight. Look at every part of that story slice, investigate the problem, provide background explainers, tell stories about the people who are suffering or who are helping, and give useful tips and point to resources. And also highlight what's working to address the problem systemically, providing evidence of success and limitations in the approach. Now, a solutions-oriented super block could easily take up an entire A block. But if that's not something you want to do, spread these stories throughout the day and promote them from show to show. Or instead, you could distribute the same material throughout the week, or even package it together for a weekend special as an introduction to a live town hall, for example. Or expand the content to digital, OTT, podcasts, or even talk shows. Interested to learn more about solutions journalism? We've got some great resources on our website. Please check out our Learning Lab, where you'll find our basic solutions journalism toolkit with answers to many more of your questions, plus guides on individual issues and topics, and our new TV playbook. It's a rich source of TV solution story examples, case studies from our TV partners, and tips on best practices for covering TV news with a solutions perspective in mind. And here are other ways to connect with us. We provide a variety of regular newsletters, updates on solutions topics, platforms to interact with others interested in solutions journalism around the world on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And we offer occasional funded grant opportunities too. Learn more by joining SJN's hub at solutionsjournalism.org. We also organize online events like these and others with in-house experts and external colleagues. Please reach out to us if you'd like more information on any of these, or let us know if you have ideas for more sessions. And last but not least, please send us your solution stories for consideration to include in our solution story tracker. We'd love to highlight your work. Thank you for your time today. Please contact Carolyn Robinson, SJN's Director of Broadcast Partnerships, for more ways we can help. We're glad to assist you and your team to produce more solutions journalism.